Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. So we're still missing a couple of schools, Corvallis High School and Whitefish High School, so we have another 70 kids coming in. Okay, so first of all, thanks for coming today. This is the 6th annual Air Toxins and the Big Sky Symposium. So welcome to the new schools, Butte. You guys are very fashionable. So we'll see what there's a couple of traditions that are holding this year. So the weather's nice, just like it is every single year, knock on wood. Hopefully it'll be like that next year. Corvallis is late, which is a tradition that we have every single year. So
Too far away, right?
So I went, our dean, Dr. David Forbes, he's the dean of the College of Health Professions and Biomedical Sciences. He's going to give you the official welcome to the University of Montana, and he's going to kick off the program today. So Dean Forbes.
Thank you, Tony, and welcome to the University of Montana. What a great idea to have these programs, an excellent opportunity for students to actually see practical applications of science. Now, we have a rule on campus. I don't know whether or not Tony's going to enforce it today or not, but if your cell phone goes off, it's a $25 fine. And if you answer it, it's another $25, right, Tony? No, he's probably not going to enforce that rule today. But anyway, thank you again for coming to the university. We're proud of the science faculty that we have on this campus. There's lots of very interesting things going on campus in terms of funded research, in terms of student opportunities. And I think sometimes, I try to put myself back in your shoes, it's been so long ago, it's hard to do, but I would guess at times it's hard to figure out what are the practical applications of science. And today's program, I think, helps you see that science really helps our society do much better. And there's all kinds of problems with air quality in this area, so it's really an interesting topic for all to look at. Once again, thank you for coming. I want to thank our judges. I want to thank program sponsors, and hopefully we'll see you here later, another year or two or whatever, in one of our fine university programs. Again, welcome. Thanks, Tony.
So just a quick show of hands, who's coming to the University of Montana next year? It's okay. So maybe more importantly, who's going to Montana State next year? All right, fair enough. Fair enough. So we're going to go through the agenda real fast. So from 9:45 to 11 o'clock, we have 11 presentations we have to get through, and I'll talk about the ground rules for that in a few minutes. We're going to have a break, and we'll see where we're at with the schedule, but we're going to start back at 11:15 to 12:30 to knock out the next 10 presentations. So 21 presentations. We also have 33 posters that are being judged right now as we speak outside. So it's kind of a concurrent session that's going on. We're going to take lunch, 12:40 to 1:25, and at that point, 1:25, we come back in, we do some evaluations, which will take a couple of minutes. Once we do that, then we're going to start giving away the awards, okay? So I wanted to give you a little bit of background on the program. So this is our 6th annual symposium. And the Air Toxins and the Big Sky program actually began back in 2003 with one high school student, a junior high school student from Big Sky High School. So when I say your name, you guys feel free to hoot and holler if you want. So the program started at Big Sky High School back in 2003. Yeah, all right. So it was a junior, so Isaac Schmidt was his name. Where's Dave? So Isaac Schmidt was his name. So junior research project, and as part of his project, we provided him with air sampling equipment, and he collected samples within 16 of his classmates' homes. So that was the very beginning of the program. The next year, we had additional classes at Big Sky come on, as did Hellgate High School and Corvallis High School. So this year, 2009, 2010, we have over 450 students from 15 high schools and middle schools throughout western Montana, Idaho, and Alaska participating in the program. So what's next for our program? Well, Alaska is looking good for us right now. We received a pretty big grant last year to expand the program up into Alaska. So a program called Air Toxins and the North Star. So these are the 7 villages that are coming online for next year. And each one of these are Alaska Native villages, very remote communities, anywhere from 100 people to 500 people within each of these communities. So they're flying communities, or to get into them during the winter, you take the ice road. So it's a very interesting experience to go up there, but this is kind of the next frontier for us with the program, in addition to keeping going with you guys, because a lot of the schools that started with us are still with us today. So past findings. So every year there's a presentation or two that really stands out, and I'm going to highlight 4 of them right now, and hopefully one of you guys will be mentioned this time next year, so keep that in mind. So 2004, we had students from Salish Kootenai College present their findings, and what they showed was that there's 7 times higher the concentrations of volatile organic compounds inside the house compared to directly outside. So this was a key finding when we were doing air toxics research 6 years ago or so. And that's the problem if we spend the majority of our time inside. 2007, we had some students from the NESPERS from the Distance Learning Center. They did an evaluation of a wood stove changeout, so collecting PM 2.5 samples both before and after a wood stove was changed out within their homes. And they showed about a 50% improvement in air quality when a wood stove was changed out. 2008, Hellgate High School. Where's Melissa? Yeah, we got one. Where are you, Melissa?
Over here.
All right. So Hellgate High School, and I think this was the winning presentation from 2008. So Will Skyrood and friends. So they evaluated, in a partnership with the 3M Corporation, they evaluated these standalone filtration units, and they showed about a 50 to 75% improvement in air quality when you use one of these filtration units. So the winners from last year were from Libby, and Libby is not doing the program this year, but they'll be back in the program this year. They're not teaching their chemistry class. So they'll be coming back to the symposium next year. But their project was the effects of cooking methods on PM 2.5 and indoor air quality. So this is Cassie and Andrea Moog, so they're twins. So what they did is they evaluated cooking techniques within the homes, and they showed that grilling food within our homes is a huge source of air pollution. So I'll also note that Cassie, both the Moog twins have come to the University of Montana. Cassie's been working in our lab all year long, so she's been great, and it's part of our pipeline. So some of you guys will be interested in science, get turned on by science, come to the university, and you'll want to work in our lab. So we've been making that happen for us in the past. So we've had over 30 students sitting where you guys are and now working for us, or now graduated from our labs within the past 10 years of the program. So what new findings will you present today? So who's going to have that presentation today that's going to be highlighted next year? Any thoughts? Anybody want to shoot their hands up and see if anybody's feeling cocky today? So we have a celebrity judging panel that's going to make that decision, and we'll announce these guys here shortly. So a little bit about the presentation. So you're going to have 5 minutes, okay? So 5 minutes, the light comes on, and Marcy McNamara, she's a PhD candidate in toxicology. She's going to be the slave driver and the timekeeper. And she's going to be the one that pulls up the presentations and is going to keep everybody on time. She has some nice placards that she's going to keep you guys on time with. So once your 5 minutes are up, you have 1 minute for question and answers. Then she's going to go to the next presentation, pull it up, and if you see your presentation flashed up here, you come on down. And let's try to be as quick as possible, okay, because we've got a lot of presentations to get through. And we all want those brownies and delicious sack lunches that Nancy's going to talk about here in a little while. So we have the poster sessions. So we have first, second, and third prizes for the poster sessions. For the presentations, we have first, second, and third prizes. Okay. And we've also worked out a deal with the conference planners for the Air and Waste Management Northwest Conference, the Pacific Northwest chapter. So this is the premier environmental event in the Northwest, and they're actually going to be hosting it here at the University of Montana November 3rd through 5th. So the first, second, and third place presentations will be invited to come to the conference and present their findings. Like I said, this is the premier environmental conference in the Northwest, held here at the University of Montana November 3rd through 5th. So now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce the folks that are going to be evaluating you. And I like to say these are repeat offenders because each one of the judges, they've been here multiple times. So they're part of the family now. So first I'll introduce Ben Schmidt. So Ben, raise your hand. So Ben works, he's go ahead. You better butter up to the judges now because this is your chance. So Ben is an air quality specialist with Missoula City County Health Department. He's been there since 1991. He has a BA in Mathematics from St. Olaf College in Minnesota, Master of Science in Mathematics from Eastern Washington, and an MS in Environmental Studies from the University of Montana. He's big off into the greenhouse gas energy. He's kind of the main person for the city of Missoula and Missoula County. He's a city staff liaison for the International Council for Sustainable Development, helped write Missoula's Greenhouse Gas Energy Conservation Plan, and is a member of Missoula's Greenhouse Gas Energy Conservation Team. So, welcome, Ben. I think this is you've been to almost every single symposium, and this is your third time as a judge, something like that, so welcome back. So who do we have back there? Is that Corvallis or Whitefish? Corvallis. All right, Corvallis, welcome. Glad you can make it. Okay. So Eric Burgess is our next celebrity judge. So Eric is his fourth time. So this is Eric's fourth time to be a judge. So Eric is fairly famous in that he's a pretty good skier. And if you don't know Eric, he does lots of cool tricks in the air. So he's actually pretty good at it. Three-time Olympian, aerialist skier. He won silver at the 97 Worlds, gold in the 1998 Nagano Olympics and 1999 World Championships, the 2002 overall Freestyle World Cup champion, a two-time World Cup aerials champ in 2001 and 2002, and then 15 World Cup victories to his credit. So thanks again for coming, Eric. So, next off we have Garen Smith, Dr. Garen Smith, who's a professor in chemistry. So, you may not know Garen, but you probably know his alter ego, Garen the Wizard, or Gee Whiz, right? Have you guys seen the Gee Whiz presentation? Anybody? Don't be shy, come on. We've all seen the Gee Whiz presentation. Yeah, so there you go. All right, so Garen travels all over the state doing Gee Whiz presentations and is one of the mainstays in the chemistry department around here. He's also my advisor when I came up here to get my PhD 10, 15 years ago, I guess. So Garen has been here since 1991. He received his PhD from Colorado School of Mines. And probably the biggest, latest accomplishment was chair of the NCUR conference, the National Conference for Undergraduate Research. So you got to help me out here. So 2,800 students, undergraduate students from across the United States from 330 something schools. So we were bombarded with students here, April, last month. So it was an incredible event, and Garen was the chair and put it all together. So it did a great job. So welcome, Garen. So Dr. Andre Holian. So Andre is the director for the Center for Environmental Sciences here at the University of Montana. And Andre has been here since 2000. He has a BS in chemistry from Bowling Green, and then a PhD in chemistry from Montana State University. And then Andre was recently awarded the 2010 Distinguished Scholar for the University of Montana. So it's a very prestigious award, and Andre just received it. So welcome, Andre. So last but certainly not least is Russ Thomas. So So Russ is a four-timer, right? So he's been here for 4 years in a row. And Russ is by far our favorite meteorologist in the city of Missoula. And Russ grew up in Marietta, Georgia. He has a BS in meteorology from Florida State University. He's been here since 2003 working at KPAX, and if you don't recognize him, that's because he's up really early, right? So what time do you wake up in the morning?
About 2:45.
Yeah, okay. That's what time a lot of us are going to bed, but maybe in our younger years. So when you get to college, that'll make sense. So Russ has been a judge for 4 years in a row, and you can catch Russ weekdays on Montana This Morning on KPAX. So welcome, Russ. All right, it's go time. You ready? So what we're going to do, okay, Marcy's going to come up here, and we're going to pick a presentation. If you see your presentation, then come on down, and we're going to get started.
I think it's this.
I turned it
Get
off.
that microphone to work.
So that is the in-cast mic.
The microphone was on the
Who should go first?
So Sentinel, come on down.
Come on up. Right. Just use the arrows to go, and I'll start the watch as soon as you start.
Hello everyone, my name is Jason Barriott. I'm a senior at Sentinel High School, and my teacher is Mr. Brett Taylor. My project, I studied the environmental air qualities differences between a roundabout on Higgins Avenue, which you can see here, that was constructed in the fall of 2009, compared to the traffic light intersection south in Higgins. So here's a picture just before and after the roundabout. And one idea behind this roundabout, not only to change traffic flow and make it a lot easier for large volumes of traffic to move through on Higgins, the other reason was also supposedly to improve air quality. So that's what I was challenging. My hypothesis was that if a modern roundabout intersection was, I guess was like put in place of a regular traffic light intersection, which that was one idea that they looked at for the project, is that the roundabout would have better air quality, so lower PM 2.5 levels than the traditional traffic light intersection. So my procedure again, as I mentioned, those two intersections. One is the traditional traffic light intersection, and the other is considered a modern one-lane roundabout. I did several different tests, varying time periods to see some type of relationship with whether I would, put them in the morning, the afternoon, or evening to see what type of traffic characteristics would be present at those times. Both intersections that I picked, I chose those two based on traffic counts from the Montana Department of Transportation, and they had data from the past 20 years, and that's how I concluded to use those two intersections. And I was using a Dust Track model 8520. It's kind of an older model, but it all does the same work, measuring PM 2.5 levels, and I was hoping to find that there would be lower levels at the roundabout. I have several graphs here that I showed that highlighted, I guess, my presentation to show the different intersections. This was my first one that was taken January 4th. And along the bottom, I don't know if you can see, this one was done from 4 to about 7 p.m. at the traditional intersection at South and Higgins. This one was my next one the next day, January 5th, at the roundabout from the same time period, 4 to 7 p.m. This was roundabout, this was beginning of February, and that's another one, 4 to 7 p.m. This is the traditional traffic light intersection at Higgins and South. This was done starting early morning about 8:30 and went till mid-afternoon. This was a roundabout test done on February 23rd. And the times there looks like about 9:30 to 11:30 in the morning. This is my most important graph, I guess. Here is my overall findings for the roundabout and the traditional traffic light intersection. I did find some correlation with weather conditions that, as you guys may know, snow or rain has a big impact on what it does to the air quality and pushing down the particulate matter. So it's not able to, I guess, move as freely in the air when there are weather conditions like that. So my conclusion from the data that I made available is that the roundabout actually had higher levels of PM 2.5 compared to the traditional traffic light intersection at South and Higgins. I would say that more extensive research should be done, and I hope will be done next year, and I can pass on to another student, because I am planning on graduating here in a couple weeks, and I'd love to see my project be taken on by somebody else and do it a little more in-depth research and produce a more accurate conclusion. So I'd just like to thank especially Carolyn Hester, Nancy Mara, and Tony Ward from here at the UM, and also David Freeman and Curtis Noonan from the Skaggs School of Pharmacy, and my teacher, Brett Taylor. Thank you.
Got any questions?
I got a question.
Yeah.
The snow and rain you mentioned, or weather that I guess positively affected the air quality, which intersection was affected by that?
I actually found that both were affected by both snow and rain. The snow affects it more, of like pushing down the particulate matter, and then you don't have usual like wind patterns, I guess, that are able to occur. I did not have any type of weather equipment though that I could study at that time at that intersection where the wind was coming from, what temperature it was. In my resource notebook, I pulled off weather reports from like the U.S. Weather Service or something like that, and just got kind of general weather reports for Missoula, but I did not have testing equipment that could be specific.
Did you notice a particular intersection being affected by the weather more than the other?
No.
Okay, and one more question. It seemed like, I can't really remember, but your roundabout, during the first two results you showed, it seemed like the tests were done at the same times of the day.
Yeah.
And then the next two, I think that they were done at different times. The intersection was done more in the morning and the roundabout was done later, is that right?
Yes, that was.
All in the same?
No, there were some varying time periods there, just because I only had one machine, so I wasn't able. I wish I could have two and be able to put one at each intersection at the same time. That would be ideal, but I did not have the equipment to do that. Yeah.
Did you say that you corrected or you chose those intersections based upon the traffic count?
Yeah, the traffic counts from the Montana Department of Transportation, both intersections showed about 11,000 vehicles passing through there a day. So that's how I picked those two. Yeah.
Since you only had one dust track available, you couldn't do both intersections on the same day to get a real side-by-side time average. Did you check to see what the particulate count was from the monitor for the community on those 2 days, or on those days, to see if there was any correction necessary, just because one day was higher in particulates than another?
No, I did not. And the only, I guess, recommendation that I would make to the student that I pass this project on to is to get a carbon monoxide detector possibly instead of a dust track, because mine is specific to, vehicles and traffic counts. So one thing, with the dust track is it does measure like wood smoke and other particulate matter, not just carbon monoxide. So, and the only carbon monoxide detector that's in the city of Missoula is at South Brooks and Russell there.
Okay.
And that's owned by the city of Missoula.
Nice job.
Thank you.
So now we do this.
Go ahead. Okay. My name's Kinsey Kelly, and this is Alicia Nelson, this is Cody Moore, and that's Kim Ledger, and we're all seniors at Big Sky High School. And we did our project on comparison of baked to fried food preparation, and we did chicken and potatoes for food. And our question was, do different cooking methods of preparing chicken and potatoes affect the indoor air quality of a typical family residence in the kitchen and a nearby room? And the room that we did was like right next to the kitchen for our air quality.
Okay, and we also had a two-part hypothesis. The first part was
pan frying food will produce the most polluted air because the hot oil will release more particles while the food is prepared. And then on the opposite side, baking will release less pollution because it is contained in an oven and fewer particles will enter the air. So first we started off putting in the air quality machines in the 3 separate rooms, the basement, I guess we didn't do the count basement. So in the room across from the kitchen and the kitchen, and we set them for an hour to get just a baseline data that wasn't affected by the cooking. And then we started making the chicken and potatoes. We did 3 samples of frying the foods and 3 samples of baking them. And we breaded them and put them in the oven for about an hour or so. And then we fried and cooked them. And then after we were done, we let the air quality machines run for another hour or so just to see the effects and let it die back down.
So as you guys can see here, these are some of our results for the frying method. What we ended up doing on the graphs was we took a baseline average because that changed depending on the day. So we took the baseline average each time, and then we found the maximum height, so the maximum amount of particles that we recorded, and then we took the 2 of those and found the percent change in that. So here's our frying results right here. And we did the same thing for baking. So we took the different results here. And we had a lot of different tests, but we really only found 2 of our tests to be consistent and accurate because we put monitors in different rooms around the house, but it kind of varied on days because some days we didn't have enough monitors. But what we found was the ones that each day we had a monitor in the living room, so we just used those for our 2 results. So through our data, we didn't get a lot of data, but what we found through our data was that baking produced on average more particles in the air than the frying method did. And the same thing with the percent change. When we took the baseline to the maximum, baking was still higher.
So for our conclusion, we reached that the baking produced higher air particles in the air. However, with the minimal amount of data we were able to collect and find useful, we really don't know if this is for sure, and further testing is definitely needed to decide if our hypothesis was really proved wrong, which our initial data does show. Yeah, and like Cody said, we tried a lot harder to get more data, but we were unable to use it. And so for what we do have, we reached that our hypothesis was proved wrong and baking produced more air particles. Thank you. Yes?
So you assessed how severe the air pollution was by looking at the highest level of particulates that you got. If you wanted to look at the total amount of particulates that a person would be exposed to, instead of using the high point, what might you use from your data?
Well, like an average of the change and also how long it lasted throughout the period would be a good assessment of it also.
Yeah. So area under the curve would be essentially what you get if you took the average and the duration. That's one way of measuring that. So it might be interesting to look at the area under the curve too for the total particulate exposure as opposed to just the highest level, which would be an acute sort of exposure.
We encourage questions from the audience too. If you guys have questions, fire away.
Was there any type of ventilation system that was used with the stove when you were frying items, or with the oven?
No, we tried to keep it as consistent as possible for all the testing, and we didn't use any kind of like hood ventilation for it. Yes?
Curious, based on your results, do you recommend dry food instead of baked because of the vegan?
Well, actually, when you look at the data, there's not a huge difference between the two of them. So I don't really think baking or frying is going to affect your health or anything like that. So I don't think, it's just whatever you prefer to eat. It's just not a huge difference between the two.
And that's time.
So.
Just the barrel button, and just keep an eye on me for the timing, okay? Okay, great.
Okay.
Okay, my name's Sydney Tobiasen.
And I'm Shelby French, and we're from Sentinel High School.
We studied the effects of wood stove smoke exposure on the lung capacities of specifically pathogen-free mice.
The purpose of the experiment is to examine the effects of the particulate matter from the wood stove smoke on the lung capacities of SPF mice. And SPF mice are mice that are bred without being exposed to any pathogens.
We hypothesized that if these SPF mice were exposed to particulate matter, then their lung functions would be adversely affected, and we measured the lung capacities by resistance and compliance. Resistance represents like the narrowing of their airways, and then compliance is their lung elasticity.
For our experimental design, we exposed the mice in two different ways. One was installation through the nose, and the second one was the direct exposure. We then, after that, let them sit for 24 hours and connected them to a Buxco machine, which measured their lung functions. And this is how we did the direct exposure. We put them in the exposure chamber, and then connected to the exposure chamber was the dust track, and it was at an average of 20 milligrams per meter cubed. And we controlled the smoke by the valves.
The installation was done with just fabricated particles that we instilled through their noses, and then in both groups we had a control group. So the direct exposure, they were just exposed to regular air, and then for the installation we instilled the control group with PBS solution, which is just a saline to eliminate any outside variables. And then after they waited for 24 hours, they were connected to a Buxco machine, which measures their lung resistance and compliance after a response to methacholine doses, which simulate asthma-like conditions.
And here are the results for the resistance. And the blue is just the control, and it increases, which shows signs of narrowing airways. And for compliance, it shows the decrease in elasticity, which were both adversely affected.
So based on this preliminary data, the increase in resistance shows a narrowing of the airways, which is an adverse effect of lung capacities, and so is the decrease in elasticity, which supports our hypothesis. And we just want to thank Chris, Jenny, Mary, who helped us at the university with the project, and then our teacher, Mr. Taylor.
Questions? That's a little bit different than what we're used to, huh? With mice. Program is expanding. Come on, let's hear one question. Judges are watching.
Do you think that there would be any differences after the methacholine challenge if you had used a different source of particles rather than wood smoke?
It might have. It's all basically the same though, because it's just the particulate matter, the 2.5 diameter, so I think it's pretty consistent.
Any more? All right, thank you. So welcome to Whitefish High School. So look around the room right now. We're almost completely full in here now. So welcome Whitefish and Corvallis. All right, so Corvallis High School.
Yeah, it's on, so you're really going to have to get close.
Hey guys, I'm Cody Langle. This is Rose, this is Chloe, and this is Rachel, and we are doing how the population of an area affects the PM2.5 levels. We're from Corvallis High School. Does the number of people in an area affect the PM2.5 levels in that area? Our hypothesis was the higher the population density of an area, the higher the PM2.5 levels in that area will be. The reason being, the higher the population, we figured that there'd be more pollution in that area. For our procedure, we used data collected by the EPA to find the annual mean of the PM2.5 levels in counties in Montana and the rest of the country. Then, using a mapping program called ArcGIS, we displayed both the PM2.5 levels of the area and the population density of the area on a map to help us visualize the results. We also graphed our results for another visualization.
This is the map of the annual mean of the PM2.5 levels in Montana counties. The lighter colors represent lower PM2.5 levels, and the darker colors is like the highest. This is a map of the population density of Montana counties, and these are the lighter colors is the less people per square mile, and the darker colors is more people per square mile. These are our findings. The fact that we did not find any correlation between population density in Montana counties and the PM 2.5 levels. And the blue represents population density and the red represents the level. There's two per, on the bottom it's the counties, and then the left axis is the population, and then on the right side it's the PM 2.5 levels.
This is the country, and again, the greens are the lighter, and then the yellow is kind of in the middle, and the orange and red are the higher PM 2.5 levels. And to find the averages, we just took the averages of all the counties with data, and then use that average to make the map. And then this is the population density, and again, the green is the lower population density, and then the yellow and orange and red are the higher ones, and it's in people per square mile. And if you remember from the last slide, this one, the colors kind of correlate between the two between the two maps. And this was our, this is a graph of it. The red is the level of PM 2.5, and the blue is the population density. And you can see here that the levels increase as the population increases, sort of, but there's not a high correlation between it. So we didn't,
in conclusion, there was not a strong enough relationship between the PM 2.5 levels and the population density of the states or counties to say that our hypothesis was correct. This is probably due to other factors such as geographic features of the area or pollution from factories. Any questions?
You said there was no correlation. How did you define that? Did you just visually look at graphs, or did you actually do some statistical test?
We looked at the graphs, and the graph was just random. There wasn't any. The population as the population increased, the PM 2.5 level didn't increase as well. It just fluctuated.
Why don't you think there was any particulate data for the counties in the eastern part of Montana?
Maybe because there's less people there, and they just didn't. I'm not sure. Maybe they just didn't have tests where there's less people.
There's less people. How about bumps?
Oh, there's it's not as much elevation over there as there is on the west coast, or on the western.
I think valleys trap the particles.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Okay, well done.
Want to come close to that one too?
Okay.
So you can move it forward by the space bar with arrows and just keep an eye on it.
And can we use, is this the laser pointer? Can we use this?
Sure.
Okay, cool.
Just don't take it with you.
Yeah.
All right, hi everybody. My name is Joe Mazer.
I'm Christian Stite.
We're from Whitefish in Mr. Spangler's class, and we did our air quality project on the possible health hazards of ski wax. So, our question was, is ski wax hazardous to one's health? And for those of you slow readers out there, ski wax can be hazardous if inhaled in large quantities and in enclosed areas was the hypothesis that we came up with and decided to test.
Okay, so the way you wax a snowboard, you get an iron and just melt the wax and spread it over the snowboard. And then you use the iron and get a thin layer of wax, just so it's all smooth, and you scrape the excess wax off. Okay, so for our procedure prior to testing, we set up the dust track and ran it for 5 minutes to get a control, just to make sure the garage was at the EPA limit. And then we just set up the snowboard and turned on the iron, got everything ready. During the testing period, we did the waxing, scraped all the excess wax off, let it cool, and all that took about 40 minutes.
Okay, so just some photos of what we did. So as you can see, we are melting the ski wax. Our friend Nathan is melting the ski wax with the iron, dripping it on there as such, and then just kind of an overview of what the waxing process looks like for those of you who are not familiar with it. This is important.
So before we knew how to use the dust track effectively, we actually just took the data by hand. You just looked at the numbers on the dust track as it ran. So that's what's going on in that picture.
Yeah. So this is our graph, obviously, and one thing that we want to point out before we explain anything else is that we did run a control, as Christian stated, and the control was just about on top of the EPA limit line, slightly above. Right. We didn't put it in because it would have just been a little bit confusing, but the garage was roughly at the EPA limit when we started.
Okay, so this first spike right in here, that was when we first heated up the iron, and it kind of melted some old wax that had been on the iron beforehand, and it was right next to the dust track. So this red line is the EPA limit, and the green is our waxing data. This big spike right up there, that was when we also set down the iron right next to the dust track, right after we had finished waxing. So all that excess, like the fumes and stuff, had been going right into there. And this right here, that's just our break. Since we were recording it by hand, we couldn't really get that info in there. But then right here is our scraping data. So the scraping, it was above the EPA limit, but it wasn't as severe as the big spikes.
Okay. Oh. All right, so our conclusion is that waxing in an enclosed area does in fact increase the particulate matter fairly significantly, and if exposed to this amount of particulate matter for long periods of time, so more than a few hours, there is the potential that it could be harmful to your health. So if you're just doing it just for yourself, recreationally, so you can go up there and snowboard, that's one thing. But if, for example, if you worked in that kind of environment, that might be something to be a little bit concerned about. Science rules. Yes, sir.
Could you restate your hypothesis again?
Our hypothesis was that if we were to wax our snowboards or skis in an enclosed area, that the particulate matter might be harmful to one's health.
But did you actually test the effects on the health, or did you actually just measure the particulate matter levels?
We measured the particulate matter, but the reason we think we can come to that conclusion validly is because the EPA Limited is designed as a health standard more than, I guess, any other kind of measurement. So that's why we feel comfortable with making that conclusion. Yes, sir.
Did you try to keep the iron cool enough to keep it from burning the wax and having the iron smoke? Because I noticed when I wax skis a lot, there's a point where if the iron gets too hot and starts smoking, then for sure it's really bad for your health. But did you keep it, was there smoke coming off the iron, or was it just hot enough to get it melted?
It was just hot enough to get it melted. I don't recall any smoke. So yeah, it went pretty well.
Was this your mom's iron, or was it one that you bought?
This was our friend Nathan's iron.
I got a trick though. If you're ever on the road, you don't have an iron, you can use a frying pan and put tinfoil on the bottom of it so you don't get wax on it.
That'd be an interesting air quality project. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That presentation wouldn't have been right without Eric Burgess adding something to that, so that was perfect.
The effects of cooking on the air around us, and I'm Quinn Peoples, and this is Courtney Cambridge, and we're from Butte Central.
So we cooked cinnamon rolls in the oven, chocolate chip cookies in the oven, noodles on the stove, bacon on the stove, eggs on the stove, and pizza in the microwave.
Our background information is cooking with solid fuels on an open fire with traditional stove creates high levels of indoor pollutants. Indoor smoke can damage health in many ways. This is a major factor of respiratory diseases and pneumonia. Indoor air pollution is the cause of 2.7% of global diseases. Indoor air pollution kills 2 million children a year. Air toxin EPA standards are 0.035 milligrams per meters cubed.
Switching from a traditional stove to an improved stove that burns liquefied petroleum gas or other cleaner gases reduces indoor air pollution and promotes a healthier environment. There is a constant exchange between indoor and outdoor air. Indoor pollutants can lead to a buildup of dangerous compounds that are not found outside. Some indoor pollutants are carbon monoxide particles, benzene, formaldehyde, and other dangerous toxins.
Questions that we had before starting our project were, is there a difference in the air toxin levels while cooking? Do levels change while cooking certain foods? What type of cooking creates more toxins? Which food and which type of cooking has the greatest negative effect on the air?
Our hypothesis was there's a difference in the air toxin levels while cooking, and the levels do change while cooking certain foods.
Our objectives, test the air while cooking, cook different types of foods, use different cooking methods, monitor the dust tract while cooking.
Our procedure was, for the bacon and eggs, we cooked them on the stove in a frying pan, and we cooked 4 pieces of bacon and 4 eggs. We cooked them for 5 minutes each at separate times. And we baked cookies and cinnamon rolls in the oven on the cookie sheet. 20 cookies and 8 cinnamon rolls. We cooked them for 12 minutes each at separate times. Noodles we cooked on the stove in a pot. 1 package of noodles and boiled them for 10 minutes. Frozen pizza, we let it defrost, and it was a personal size pizza, so it wasn't very big, and we cooked in the microwave for 7 minutes.
In both experiments, the dust tract was set up to test the air for 1 hour while cooking. All of the foods were cooked at separate times. While cooking the food, we monitored the dust tract to see if the air toxin levels were changing. After the test we were done, we collected data from the dust tract.
Our conclusion was that through our experiments, we determined that bacon was the type of food that released the most air toxins. The air toxins from the bacon and eggs would stay in the air for quite a while compared to the other foods. That could be the reason why the results from test 1 were higher than the results from test 2. The frozen pizza released the least amount of air toxins, and the cinnamon rolls and cookies released about the same amount of air toxins, and the toxins did not stay in the air for too long after they were done.
There may have been possible variations in the air toxin levels because the toxins from the bacon and eggs would stay in the air while cooking other foods. If we were to do the test again, we would use individual tests for each type of food. The test would show that cooking does affect the air quality in our homes. It would be smart to open windows while cooking so that not all the toxins are trapped in your kitchen or your home.
Bacon released the most air toxins, 1.65. Noodles was 1.5, eggs 1.4, cinnamon rolls 1.1, cookies 0.7, and frozen pizza 0.25.
This is our first graph, and from 0 to 2.5 to 250 is our eggs. That's when we started cooking our eggs. And then from 250 to 900 was our bacon, which is, it starts raising like a lot higher. And then 900 to 1500 was our noodles, and 1500 to 1900 was our cookies. 1900 to 2200 was our pizza, and 2200 to 2750 was our cinnamon rolls, and that's when it started to lower after we were cooking in the oven instead of on the stove.
This is our second test, and first we did the noodles, and then that was from 0 to 1200. 1200 to 2500 was cookies, 2500 to 3600 was pizza, and then this is part 2. From 0 to 700 was bacon, 700 to 1250 was eggs, and 1250 to 1800 was cinnamon rolls. Should we finish?
Can you wrap it up?
Yeah. Okay, we're almost done. Repeating the test would help to improve our experiment because it would be more accurate and would reveal possible errors in the earlier experiments. To improve our experiment, we would do separate tests for each type of food. By doing separate tests, there would be less room for errors because the toxins from the bacon and eggs wouldn't be in the air while we were cooking the other foods.
Got time for one question.
What would it look like if the bacon released a plume of particles and then your next food being cooked released another plume of particles? How would that look on one of your graphs?
It would probably just keep getting higher because the toxins in the air from the bacon stay in the air for quite a while. So if you were to do one right after the other, it would just get higher and higher, I think.
Do you think you would see a little bit of a saddle in between?
Yeah.
A little
when
one
you started
probably.
cooking the bacon, and then once we stopped, it'd probably go down a little bit, and then the air toxins were still there, and so then once you start cooking another thing, it'd probably go up a little bit more, since the bacon particles were still in the air.
Okay, nice job. So we got a couple of people that have come a long ways away to come to this symposium. So I'd like to recognize maybe the person that's come the farthest. So Tom Fazzini from the Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium is here, all the way from Anchorage, Alaska. So Tom, say hello to everybody. I was gonna say too, if you want to hang out with your celebrity judges and talk to them or ask questions, they'd love to talk to you guys. And same thing with Tom Fazzini. If you want to hear about Alaska and life in rural Alaska, you know, he's got some great stories. So we'll have plenty of time after this presentation.
Okay. So just make sure to talk directly into this one, but right on your
I just clicked.
just space or the arrows, and just keep an eye on me for the timing.
Great, thank you.
Hi, I'm Shelby Jo Henthorne and I'm from Hellgate High School. I was talking to the teachers at Hellgate and they all complained about the smell from the buses when the buses come to pick up the students. And I also realized that they all keep their windows open, so that made me curious about the pollutants that could possibly be entering the classrooms, which also provided inspiration for this project: the relationship between the location of the school buses and amount of particulate matter in the school. Oh, and by the way, all the pictures are taken from around Hellgate to provide better visualization. Sorry. First, the question: how does the location of the parked buses affect the particulate matter levels in the school? My hypothesis is, if the buses did not park outside the windows of the school, then the particulate matter levels in the school would be lower. Some background information. Currently, the loading zones are on Gerald and Connell, but Beach proposes 3 new, proposals. But so far, their favorite one is to put a loading zone on Higgins in front of the school. Unfortunately, all 3 proposals involve cutting down trees and the buses idling outside of the school. The trees would be replanted, but across the street from the school, which doesn't benefit the students as much, and also trees take a while to mature. Fortunately, the trees around Hellgate already are mature, and a single mature tree can absorb carbon dioxide at a rate up to 48 pounds per year and provide enough oxygen for 2 people. It also reduces the greenhouse effect by shading the school and reduces other, wow, I'm shaking a lot, I'm sorry, and reduces other air pollutants by using natural air components. Buses, on the other hand, are not so helpful. According to research, children are especially susceptible to air pollution. This could be because they respire at twice the rate of adults, and they're still developing. Exposure to particulate matter can damage lung tissue and aggravate already existing lung and heart conditions. It has also been documented that buses idling outside the school results in distributing exhaust throughout the entire building. And the Center for Disease Control estimates that 4.8 billion children have asthma, which the exhaust irritates these symptoms. Before we continue, I think I should say that anything above 35 micrograms per cubic meter is considered hazardous. My procedure. So I took the information from the classrooms on the first floor next to or along Connell Street, and I ran the dust track for an hour before and an hour after the buses were there, so we could include all variables, including when there are students in the classroom and no buses, students in the room, no buses, students in the room with the buses idling, and no students in the room, no buses. My data is represented on this graph, and the red horizontal line represents the hazardous level, and the dotted red lines represent the time period from when the buses were idling. As you can see, there's clearly a spike, and you can compare that with the controlled variable taken on a Saturday, which is the dark blue line. My conclusion is, unfortunately, there was not enough consistent evidence to prove the buses to be hazardous to the students, but there was a spike in the time period the buses were there, so that is clearly unhealthy, and I still recommend that we move the buses away from the school. Some options to where we can move the buses could be on 6th Street, which you see here in this picture, and some benefits from this is that it's away from the school, and it wouldn't affect the students any more than ongoing traffic already does, and it doesn't involve cutting down any trees, and it's already a one-way street. Oh, sorry. And the beach parking lot would be an even better option considering it's already unoccupied. It would be in use for beach buses, take little renovation, and does not cut down any trees. It's away from the school and doesn't eliminate parking spots, which is a big issue at Hellgate right now. I'd like to say a special thank you to my judges. Thank you for listening to this presentation. And Mr. Gagermeyer, who can unfortunately not be here today, but without his support and encouragement, this presentation would not be possible. Thanks to Matt Ross-Miller for helping me evaluate the data, and Harmony Sherman for helping me collect it. Thank you. Questions? Yes?
Did you try to get beach transportation to try to pick up the students somewhere else, or
Thank you.
a way to, it seems like you kind of already knew that the exhaust was bad, and then you measured it and found out, yeah, it's bad.
Well,
Did you consider trying to have two different types of situations for picking up?
Right, because Beach proposed these areas, which then made us want to test to prove, because they kind of needed proof before they would do any serious renovations and moving. And the beach parking lot has been not in use for a couple years now, since no one really wants to pay a whole lot for parking. So, does that answer your question at all?
Yeah, I was also curious, did your slides show that you did one test with the windows open and one with it closed? I missed that part.
Oh no, all windows were open during the testing. Which
So you weren't comparing different environments, you were just measuring consistent environment?
Correct. Thank you. Yes?
Do you know what the general wind direction is around there that may impact your results?
I'm sorry, I don't. Any other questions? Yes?
Is that a solution, just having buses instead of idling?
That works for during when it's warmer out, but the bus drivers always complain when it's winter and the buses are freezing. Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, nice job. So I think that's pretty cool that Shelby was able to get up there by herself and give her presentation along with Jason. So extra kudos for those guys. Alrighty, my name's Jake Metcalf. This is Bo Anderson and Dan Kosh. We're all from Big Sky High School. We're all seniors. Our air quality project, we decided to test how many air particles were in two different places over a 24-hour period. We had one dust track in a rural area and one in a residential area. Our rural area was Our rural area was out by Frenchtown at this kid's house, and our residential area was down in Lolo at Dan's house.
Our hypothesis stated that there was going to be varying particles in the air throughout the day, and that the most particles would be in the air during and around 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. due to high transit periods.
So for our procedure, we went on ahead and set up a 24-hour long test trial with our dust tracks. And like Jake said earlier, we had one set up in Frenchtown and one set up in Lolo, kind of just to compare the two to see if they had differences. But they're also done the same day each time, so we could kind of go on ahead and directly compare the two different areas. And so our first one was, we did a couple different tests, but we did it by season. So this is our winter test data in Frenchtown, and as you can see, there's like the spike here at night, which we didn't really know what would happen. But since the same thing went on and happened in Lowell around the same time, we believe that there was like a weather pattern that came in that caused the data to kind of be a little shifted. Yeah. And once again, this is taken in the springtime, and this is in the rural area. And as you can see, there's a pretty large spike from after around 9 a.m. and all the way down to after 6, where the amounts are a lot higher. And this is again the same time in Lolo in our springtime, and it's not as apparent, but you can see that there is a fairly good raise in numbers as the day goes on. So this is just a couple of our numbers from our test. The rural area had a higher average overall than Lolo, but we also saw a reduction in numbers from the times, and that wasn't really a goal of our experiment, but it was kind of just an unexpected result that we thought was pretty interesting.
Our conclusion, rural showed more particles in the air. We believe that might have been due to
cows in the area. Bo owns a few cows, and we believe them may be kicked up with more particles in the air than the rural or residential area. Both sites showed a decrease in numbers from winter to spring. Our original intentions was we figured more snow in the winter, it would have lower numbers, and the spring would have higher numbers. But as some of you may know, we had a pretty dry winter and a pretty wet spring, so we believe the precipitation had pushed the air particles out of the air in the spring, and that's why it was higher in the winter.
And kind of just proving our hypothesis, we did see increases as the day went on, like I said, so we kind of came to the conclusion that during high traffic times there are more particles in the air. So that was good. We like that to find out. Good. Good question.
Questions?
In addition to the, in addition to the snow effects, moisture effects that you were considering, are there any other events that occurred during the winter time more than the spring that could have caused higher levels to be there?
Well, so on the days that we did it, like, we weren't really knowing what to expect going into it, but we kind of just kept it the same, like keeping it in the same spots. So weather was really the only thing that really changed. So that's why we kind of just, we didn't know what to expect that would cause differences, but the weather looked like was a major factor.
Yeah, air quality can be good in the winter or bad in the winter, good in the spring or bad in the spring. How many, did you do just one day of testing in each of these seasons?
We did 2 in each.
And what, and how different were the weather conditions on those days?
I believe they were pretty similar. I think we did them both in the same week period, so if I remember right, the winter one, it was fairly dry. It was before the snow came, and the spring one, it was I think we had an inversion and a lot of cloud cover and a bit of rain, but that's just what I remember. So.
Yeah, but we don't know if we didn't take that out of that in consideration of the numbers.
I would actually almost bet that the inversion part, the reason it's so high overnight in the wintertime was because of the inversion, much more so than you'd expect in the spring when it's cloudy. That cold air just sitting there overnight in this. So I would almost guarantee you that's the reason why it was so high overnight in the wintertime.
Thank you.
Okay.
There's a couple other people we'd like to recognize while we're waiting for a whitefish presentation, which is going to be next. So the folks from Lapway High School, where are you? Lapway High School?
Raise your hands Lapway.
So welcome you guys, and Mona Alberton and Misty Wisdom, where are you at? So the two chaperones / moms, so welcome.
Hello, I am Shane Kirchhofer.
I'm Presley Pritchard.
We're from Whitefish High School, Mr. Spangler's chemistry class. Our inspiration for our idea, which was to test 2 fire stations in and around the Whitefish area, is that my partner Presley here volunteers regularly at the fire department and is interested in becoming part of the fire department when she grows up. And I thought it was pretty interesting too, with all the residue from fires and stuff when the firefighters come back.
We tested 2 different stations. Station 21 is in town, and our south station has a vehicle exhaust system, and Station 21 does not. Station 21 is relatively older. It was constructed in 1929, It has a flat roof that consists of a rubber membrane. The first floor contains the engine bay, storerooms, a bathroom, and an office. The second floor contains the bedrooms and basically the living area. The front of the building has 3 garage doors, and the back has 3 also. And there are 2 stairways that connect the up and down stairs. This is a picture of Station 21 in the middle of town, and that's just a fire truck. And then the old rooftop. South Station is a bit newer. It was constructed in 1998, and the first floor contains the engine bay as well, separated from the classroom, bathroom, and kitchen area. And the second floor is the living area. The front of the building has 4 garage doors, and so does the back, and there's 1 open metal stairwell. And this is South Station.
To test the air quality, we used a dust track. We tested Station 21 and then the more rural station, which was a little out of town. Each time we used a dust track, we made sure it was around waist height or around the head, so usual breathing area. And we tested Station 21 from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. and we tested the rural station from 7 p.m. till 10 p.m.
This is in South Station. The first picture and the second picture are of the vehicle exhaust systems that they install so that all the air, when they're running the vehicles, that it goes out of the building. And the third picture is where we set up the dust track. This is Station 21. This is where we set up the dust track downstairs in the bay area. One of the important things that we were looking for was vehicle exhaust because it contains carbon monoxide, water vapor, and soot. And there's also vapors from diesel fuel and motor oil, which contain volatile organic compounds. There's water vapor from the hose, rubber odors, residues from fires, and those are of particular importance. Potential pathways for the air to travel is up the fire pole shaft, utility holes, engine bays, bay doors, and stairwells. And these are the pictures of the really poorly sealed bay doors and the door to the upstairs and then the fire pole shaft.
Here's our results from Station 21, which did not have the exhaust regulation. And for the most part, it stayed under the EPA limit until around 6:15, where they got a call and had to go out and the engines were turned out. And you can see a high spike that's way above the average EPA limit, but it did go back down to equilibrium within 2 hours. South Station had the exhaust maintenance, and it also had a call around 8 o'clock for just practicing, but as you can see with that, it was not severe.
We found that you can, in order to prevent the bad air from entering, you can ensure that the utility holes are sealed properly and have mechanical exhaust ventilation as in South Station, because we found that that was a lot safer. Keep all the doors and windows closed at all times. Change filters for HVAC equipment. Keep the fan on for constant ventilation. There's a picture of the fan in Station 21. And clean regularly. These are just a few of our references. Any questions?
Yes?
Why close all the doors and windows? Doesn't that let more of the exhaust come out, and especially the place that doesn't have the tubes sucking the exhaust out?
Well, mostly the doors and the windows that are attached to the living areas, because that's where the guys spend all their time.
Okay, so keep those closed off from the engine.
Yes.
Yeah, did you recommend that they have fans and open all of the doors of the garage and blow the bad air out after a call comes in?
That's usually what happens, but as you can still see, sometimes it's not powerful enough and it just takes a little while before it goes down, but it didn't seem too harmful because it was only 2 hours above the EPA limit. Most of their time was spent fairly in decent air quality.
Are the diesel exhaust ventilation tubing, is that required as in more recently built buildings? Is it just not in the older building because it wasn't put in when it was built?
Well, now they're starting to require it, but since the old building was so old, they didn't have them back then, and they weren't going to install them because they have a new station that they're building, which also has the vehicle exhaust systems.
Hi there, we are from Big Sky High School and we researched the air quality of different restaurants with different cooking styles. I'm Katie Michaels.
I'm Phil Neenich.
I'm Kaylee Copeland. I'm Jennifer Reynolds.
Morgan Spires.
Mackenzie Enich.
Okay, so our question is air quality affected by the cooking style and number of customers in a restaurant? And the purpose for our experiment is to determine if there's a correlation between the air quality in a restaurant and its cooking method. So our hypothesis was that cleaner air will be found in restaurants using clean cooking styles, and we decided that clean cooking styles were ones that had reduced like smoke and frying and high heat cooking methods such as grilling and frying. And we also hypothesized that cleaner air will be found in restaurants with fewer customers and staff.
Our methods, our group met every Monday at 6 p.m. at local restaurants of variety. And we set up 2 air quality machines, which were 2 dust tracks, and then we just arranged the results afterwards. We also kept track of staff and customers every 15 minutes to have a record to see if population influenced results. And we ordered a meal at each restaurant just for consistency. We used 2 dust tracks to collect the data that collected air particles every 30 seconds for down to 10 micrometers. And we used the 2 dust tracks to give the data more statistical support. And the graph that we used included the number of people in the restaurant, and the axis in the graph was scaled to compare the data recorded by the dust tracks and the number of people at each restaurant.
So these are 4 of our graphs here that were the readings with the 4 lowest particulate matters, and they include a brick oven pizza shop, an Italian pizza restaurant, Italian restaurant, and stir fry and wrap sample. And as you can see here, the red line is the average of the 2 dust tracks that were taken at each sample location. And then the blue line here shows that number of people, and the data point was every 15 minutes again. And it's the number of customers and staff. And then this again is the 4 restaurants with the highest air qualities, and a fried food restaurant, a coffee shop, fast food restaurant, and a Mexican restaurant. And then if you look at the Mexican restaurant, for instance, we can start looking at the extreme peaks, and we can attribute that peak most likely to getting our food.
So we concluded that the number of people has a very slight correlation with the air quality of the restaurant. For example, the coffee shop had a very high foot traffic and low air quality. Our conclusion was that fried cooking styles and or high foot traffic result in more particulate matter, and this study is used to advise restaurants with unclean cooking styles to improve their ventilation methods and cooking styles.
We'd like to thank our teacher, Mr. Jones, all the restaurants who let us sample, and I will take any questions.
Did you note in your study how the cooking area was segregated from the dining area Like in a fast food restaurant, a lot of times the cooking and dining area are a continuous airspace, whereas in a fancy restaurant, it's a separate room.
It's really hard for us to control that because restaurants were organized differently. In restaurants where it was continuous, we tried to move further away from the actual kitchen to account for that difference. But it was something that we had to try to control.
And also sometimes we were just seated, so we really couldn't control where we would be. Yep.
Did you have any information on the types of ventilation or the amount of ventilation in the kitchens?
We didn't. One thing is, like, a couple of restaurants would have fans set up in their restaurant, and some of them didn't. Like the wood oven obviously didn't have any ventilation above their oven, but the fast food restaurants did. So we recorded it, but we couldn't really add it into our data.
Any more questions? Okay. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a break, but before you get up, I want to see a hands of all the people that are involved with the presentations in here. So,
How many of you are making presentations? PowerPoint presentations.
so how many people are doing posters? Okay, so the poster session, the first round of judging is now complete. So what we're going to do now is call the top 6 posters. And you guys are going to go out there and stand by your posters. The rest of us are going to come back in here at 11:15 to continue with the presentation. So let me announce the top 6 posters. So from Whitefish, Jackie Cassidy, Bailey Eaton, and Schwickert. Yeah, so hands up. So we're going to call you up and then you go to your poster. So we'll let you out first before the stampede begins. So again, from Whitefish, Jack Steele, Connor, and Alex. So Muhammad is over there, so follow Muhammad. Muhammad, raise your hand. Okay, from Sentinel we have Josh and Colin. From Lapway High School we have Mary and Sierra. And from Whitefish we have Tyler and Jenna. And Missoula, Alaska sent down a poster. They're one of our participating schools, but they weren't able to make the program. But we're going to do a virtual poster something.
Okay,
So
Q&A, yeah.
Zachary and Chaz. So. Okay, for the rest of you guys, we're going to take a quick break. We'll meet back in here in 10 minutes.